Hi. Hello, fifth graders. Welcome back, dear ones. This is Miss Fatim Fardoon, and I missed you so much. As most of you know, I am the French coordinator at ISI, but I'm also a science teacher that loves teaching science so much. We're going to start this year by talking about plants. As you know, also plants are living organisms. When you visit your school garden, your house garden, you observe many different kinds of plants growing in different places, right? There are many different kinds of plants, but all plants share the same basic needs to live and grow. With or without leaves, green or non-green, all plants need to feed in order to develop. So in this chapter, we'll be talking about ways of nutrition in plants, about plants' need, photosynthesis, plant respiration, and carbon cycle in nature. Let's go! All organisms need energy to live and grow. The word organism refers to any living thing. What are different living things that you know? People, animals, and plants. That's it, right? Where do we get the energy that we need to live and grow? How do you get the energy that you are using now to watch me and to listen to me? We get it from food. Different organisms like people, animals, get their food in different ways. Different organisms get their food in different ways. People find their food and eat it. They consume it. Animals too. Animals find their food and they consume it. For this reason, people and animals are recorded as consumers. We consider them or we call them consumers since they eat. They find their food and they consume it. But what about plants? Aren't plants organisms too? Don't they need food to grow healthy? Yes, they do. Different plants have different ways to get their food. Let's check some of these ways. Green plants. Green plants cannot find their food and consume it. Do they have a mouth to eat a piece of pizza, for example? No, they don't. What do they do then? Green plants use the sunlight energy. They take carbon dioxide from the air. They take water from the soil to cook and to make their own food. For this reason, we call them producers or autotrophs. So again, green plants. Green plants are green because they have something in their bodies called chlorophyll. This chlorophyll catches sunlight. This sunlight energy is used to cook. So they cook their own meal, which is a kind of sugar, and they produce their own food. So green plants are producers that produce their own food out of carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight energy. Should I repeat? Did you get the idea? Green plants are producers. Why do we call them producers? Great, because they produce their food. They make their food. What do they use to make their food? Sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. Excellent. Okay, but what if a plant misses one of these vital needs? Didn't we say that green plants use carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight energy to produce their food? But sometimes a plant misses one or more of these needs. What should this plant do? This plant goes in a symbiotic relationship with another organism. What do we mean by symbiosis? Symbiosis comes from a Greek word and it means living with It describes a close relationship between two organisms that help each other. Sometimes, but not always, this relationship is beneficial for both organisms. Sometimes it's not.
Normally, when people talk about symbiosis, they're talking about two different types of organisms cooperating to help each other survive. For example, clownfish hide from predators among the tentacles of sea anemones. In return, they feed the anemone with their own droppings. Yum yum. The anemone and the clownfish enjoy a symbiotic relationship. In biology, however, symbiosis has a broader definition than simple cooperation. It's classically defined as any long-term living together of unlike organisms. Let me say that again. Symbiosis, the long-term living together of unlike organisms.
Again, 1. Green plants. Green plants are producers. They collect their needs from their surroundings to produce and cook their food, which is a kind of sugar. 2. Symbiotic plants. A symbiotic relationship happens between different organisms and helps each of them meet its basic needs. So symbiosis happens when a plant cannot get the food it needs to live. What can this plant do? It asks the need of another organism. Symbiotic plants are classified into three categories or types. First one, mutualistic plants, mutualism. Say it with me, mutualism. What is mutualism? To understand this, we will take the example of the lichen. The lichen is a symbiotic plant that is formed by the association of a green alga with a mushroom. The green alga is a photosynthetic plant. It is a green plant, so it can cook its own food. The mushroom isn't green. It cannot cook. The problem is that the alga, the green plant, cannot reach the soil to get the water and the minerals that it needs to cook. So what can this alga do? The mushroom will help it. The filament of the fungus or the mushroom will give the alga the water and the minerals that it needs. The alga will cook and will give part of this matter to the mushroom. This way, they are both happy. They are both helping each other. The fungus or the mushroom gives water and minerals to the alga. The alga is producing food and giving some of this food to the mushroom. This way, both are happy. So, in a mutualistic relationship, in mutualism, both organisms are happy. And to understand better what mutualism is, we're going to watch a short video.
One type of interaction is called mutualism. An example of mutualism exists between honeybees and flowers. Flowers provide nectar to the bees. The bees use the sugar-rich liquid to make honey. But as the bee flies from flower to flower, tiny grains of pollen get stuck to the bee. The bee moves the pollen without even knowing it, and pollen is necessary for flowers to reproduce.
Second type of symbiotic plants are commensalistic plants or commensalism. To understand this, we'll take the example of the orchids. The orchids are flowers that grow on top of trees. This prevents the orchids from being walked on or eaten by other organisms. The orchids benefit from the environment provided by these trees. While the trees don't seem to be helped, or harmed, they do nothing to the trees. In this relationship, one organism benefits while the other is neither helped nor harmed. To understand better this kind of relationships, we'll go and watch
Another
this
relationship
video.
is called commensalism. This interaction
Unlike green plants, fungi or mushrooms cannot produce their own food. Instead, they absorb nutrients from their surroundings. So, the mushroom is the parasite and the tree is the host. Let me show you the pic. A parasite is an organism drawing nutrients from a living host. It is harming the host. The mushroom is the parasite. It is taking, stealing, drawing some or all of the nutrients of the host, in this case, the tree. The parasite slowly damages a living tree by absorbing nutrients from it. So parasitism is a form of one-sided symbiosis. The parasite lives off the host. It may harm the host. A parasitic relationship is the opposite of a mutualistic relationship.
The last symbiotic
So one, green plants, producers that produce their own food after collecting their needs from their surroundings. Two, symbiotic plants. Three types of symbiotic plants: mutualistic plants, commensalistic plants, parasitic plants. Three, carnivorous plants. Plants that feed on animals. Carnivorous plants are plants which get nutrients from trapping and eating animals. They consume animals, they eat them. They are usually called insectivorous plants because most of them consume insects. They usually trap insects. Carnivorous plants are also green, so they can still go through photosynthesis and produce their own food. They can make their own food. But since this food isn't enough, they need another way to feed themselves. So they consume insects. They are both producers and consumers. In this lesson, we identified the different models of nutrition in plants. We said that we have plants that are producers, they produce their own food, they are green plants. We have symbiotic plants. We have mutualistic plants that help each other, or commensalistic plants that get their needs from other organisms without harming or helping them. Parasitic plants that harm other organisms. And we have carnivorous plants that feed on animals. What are different examples of plants following different models? Green plants like, let's say, the tomato plant, maybe. Mutualistic plant like the lichen. Commensalistic plant like the orchid. Parasitic plant, where you will see later in the worksheet, the mistletoe plant. And carnivorous plant, we have many like the pitcher plant. Define the terms producer, parasite, and symbiosis. Producers are green plants that can produce their own food. Parasites are organisms that steal or draw nutrients from other organisms and they may harm them. Symbiosis is a relationship that happens between two organisms to help them get their needs. If you still have any questions, I'll see you during the Zoom session. Till then, bye bye, stay safe.